He walked into his own restaurant wearing a hoodie and no one recognized him. 10 minutes later, he found his top waitress crying in the break room. What he discovered next would change everything. Vin Carter didn't believe in running a business from spreadsheets and Zoom calls. He believed in boots on the ground. And tonight, his boots were scuffed sneakers under a weathered pair of jeans, paired with a hoodie that made him look like just another tired diner wandering into his own upscale restaurant. Tours in the heart of Los Angeles. Tours wasn't just another celebrity vanity project. It was personal. Vin had poured 7 years of his life and his mother's old recipes into building it. From the handcrafted oak tables to the open-concept kitchen, every inch had a story. But Vin knew something many CEOs forgot. A business didn't live in the lighting or the profits. It lived in the people. Which is exactly why he was there tonight, unannounced and unarmed except for one powerful weapon: his silence. It had started 2 days ago. An anonymous letter showed up at the studio where Vin was filming a late-night commercial shoot. Typed, no name, just one sentence scrawled at the bottom in red ink. If you really care about your staff, come see what's happening after 10 p.m. And so he did. Friday nights were the busiest. Tours was packed, Hollywood producers sharing cocktails near the bar, couples snapping selfies under the golden pendant lights, and staff moving like clockwork between tables. Everything looked flawless. But Vin's eyes weren't on the steak, they were on the faces. He spotted Rick Callahan immediately, the new general manager. Crisp navy shirt, Bluetooth earpiece, rigid stance. Vin had reviewed his resume 3 months back. Good numbers, polished background. But the moment he saw the way Rick's eyes darted and locked like a wolf scanning for a weak target, he felt it. Control, not leadership. Vin watched as Rick passed by a young server and clapped him a little too hard on the shoulder. Let's keep the smiles going, folks. Happy tables mean steady paychecks. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. As Rick walked past the bar, Vin noticed Nate, one of the bartenders he'd hired himself. Solid guy, honest eyes, but tonight Nate looked different. Quieter, his smiles more practiced than usual. Vin approached casually, asking for a glass of water, maybe recognizing him, maybe not, and nodded silently. But his eyes said more. Something was off. Vin didn't push, not yet. Instead, he wandered toward the hallway marked restrooms and staff. He had walked this route 100 times, but tonight, it felt different, the lighting dimmer, the hallway colder. That's when he heard it. A muffled sound. A choked breath. A voice trembling, low and pleading. He paused outside the break room door, barely ajar, and peeked through. Inside was Emily Brooks, one of his longest-standing waitresses, never late, always kind, a single mom with a 4-year-old son and bills stacked like pancakes. And now, her hands were gripping the metal countertop as if it was the only thing holding her up. Beside her was Tyler, young, earnest, shaking his head. "You can't let him do this to you again," Tyler whispered. "You don't owe him anything, Em." She looked like she was breaking. "If I say no," he said, "I'm gone." Vin's jaw clenched. What Tyler didn't know was that Vin had once been that scared kid, watching his own mother fold under pressure just to keep food on the table. That kind of pain never really leaves you. He leaned closer to the doorway, straining to hear more, but the clink of a dish from the kitchen made him step back. He turned and walked away, not because he was done, but because he had just begun. This time, he wasn't walking in as a customer. He was walking in as a storm. Vin slipped back onto the main floor, his face unreadable, but his pulse surging beneath the calm. He scanned the restaurant like a general surveying a battlefield. The sound of clinking glassware, quiet jazz, and laughter masked the rot beneath the surface. He spotted Tyler emerging from the hallway a minute later. The kid's shoulders were tight, his steps rushed. Something in his expression was off, too stiff, too calculated. Vin walked over, slow and casual, pretending to glance at the dessert menu near the server station. "Hey man," Vin said quietly. "Got a pen?" Tyler looked up, startled. "Yeah, sure." He handed one over, trying to smile. Vin didn't walk away. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Tyler said too quickly. eyes darting to the front, where Rick Callahan now stood near the host stand, arms folded like a sentinel. "She doesn't look fine," Vin said gently. Tyler swallowed hard. "It's personal," he muttered, barely audible. "It's complicated." Vin tilted his head. "Does it have to do with that man over there?" Tyler hesitated. That half second of silence told Vin everything. "It's not a customer, is it?" Tyler looked down. "No." Vin nodded once. "Thank you." He walked away, but every step added weight to his gut. He didn't need a full confession. He'd seen the truth already. He slid onto a stool at the bar just as Nate walked by. "Another water?" Nate asked, trying to keep it light. Vin leaned in slightly. "I need a straight answer, Nate. Has Rick ever kept Emily late, alone?" Nate froze. His smile faltered. "Yeah," he said eventually. "Almost every closing shift. He says it's for payroll meetings or performance reviews, but he doesn't do that with anyone else." Vin's voice lowered. "Has he touched her?" "I don't know," Nate said, "but the way she looks when she walks out of his office, it's not right, man. Like she's carrying something too heavy for one person." Vin thanked him and turned toward the floor again. The lighting seemed colder now. He could see it clearly, the fear, the silence, the way no one made eye contact when Rick walked by. Rick Callahan moved like a man who owned the place. He barked quiet orders, corrected servers for invisible mistakes, and gave out smiles that never reached his eyes. He didn't lead, he loomed. Vin stood. He didn't go to Emily. He went to Rick. "Excuse me," Vin said. "Got a minute?" Rick turned, clearly annoyed. "Can I help you?" Vin gave a polite smile. "I think we should talk. Somewhere private." Rick's smile was condescending. "If this is about your meal, I'll have a server fix it." "It's not about my meal." Rick gave a tight laugh. "Sir, it's a Friday night. I'm running a floor. I can't chat with every customer who wants to play Yelp critic." Vin's smile vanished. "I'm not a customer." Something in his tone made Rick pause. He gave a forced chuckle. "Right, and I'm not a manager." Vin reached into his back pocket and pulled out a slim black wallet. He flipped it open, revealing his tour's executive ID. The air shifted. Rick's face paled. "Mr. Carter?" Vin's eyes didn't blink. "Now you remember?" There was a silence, like a record scratch. Rick looked around as if hoping this was a prank. It wasn't. Vin leaned in. "We're going to have a conversation, and you're going to tell me everything. Or I'll find out myself, and you won't like how that ends." Rick tried to laugh again, but it caught in his throat. Vin gestured. "Office." "Now." The walk back to the manager's office was quiet, but tense enough to slice air. Rick opened the door, stepping inside like a man walking toward judgment. Vin followed, shut the door behind them and locked it. Rick turned sharply. "Look, I don't know what someone told you, but you don't have to know," Vin cut him off. "Because I already do." He leaned forward, both palms on the desk. "I know about the late nights. I know about the threats. I know you told a single mother she had to obey you or lose her job." Rick's face flushed. "That's absurd. Emily's emotional. She's had a rough year. I've given her extra hours out of compassion." "Don't you dare say compassion." Vin's voice dropped, cold and precise. "She shakes when you walk by. That's not gratitude. That's fear." Rick threw up his hands. "You have no proof. It's just hearsay." Vin reached into his pocket and placed a small flash drive on the desk. "That's a recording from tonight's break room. She didn't know I was there. Neither did Tyler. You want to hear what she said?" Rick's jaw tightened. "You had no right. And you had no right to make this place a prison." Vin stepped closer. "Tell me, Rick, is this the first time? Or just the first time you got caught?" Rick was shaking now, sweat forming at his temple. "I didn't do anything illegal." "You abused your position. You weaponized someone's need for a paycheck. You held power like a knife. She could have quit. She has a son with asthma and no support system. You knew that. You used it." Rick's defenses crumbled. "Please," he whispered. "This job. This is all I have." Vin's stare was ice. "Then maybe you should have protected it better." He picked up his phone, dialed HR directly. "Yes, this is Carter. Effective immediately terminate Rick Callahan's employment. Add him to the industry misconduct blacklist. Notify legal will process his permanent bar from Tours affiliated properties. And I want a statement prepared for internal ethics audit. He hung up and walked to the door. Rick looked like a deflated suit. You can't just end someone's career like this. You did that yourself. Vin opened the door. This conversation is over. You're done. As they exited, the staff had gone quiet. Word had already spread. Servers froze mid-step. Emily stood by the service station, hands trembling. Vin turned to her and spoke gently. He's gone. You're safe now. Her lip quivered, eyes welling, but for the first time her shoulders lifted slightly. Tyler stood nearby, nodding with quiet relief. Nate placed a hand on Emily's back. Then something unexpected happened. Linda, the dishwasher, quiet 50s, always in the background, stepped forward. Sir, I need to say something. Vin looked at her. Of course. Her voice cracked. 3 months ago he made me sign a paper. Said it was for HR, but it was a resignation letter. I didn't even read it. I thought if I didn't, he'd cut my hours. Vin's heart sank. Did you try reporting it? He said no one would believe me. That I was just the help. More staff began speaking up. A prep cook, a busboy, a pastry chef. Story after story. Quiet abuse, gaslighting, control masked as structure. Vin took a breath. All right, everyone listen. The room stilled. From now on, this restaurant is under direct oversight. I want anonymous reporting channels active by Monday. There will be weekly mental health check-ins, and performance reviews will be reviewed from the bottom up. Eyes widened. Some teared up. For a moment, the air didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt alive. Emily stepped forward, voice shaking. What happens next? Vin looked at her. That's up to you. Me? You were the first to endure it. Now you get to help lead the change. Emily hesitated, then nodded. A spark returned to her eyes. Then I want to make sure no one ever feels what I felt here. Vin smiled. Good, because that's exactly what we're going to do. Emily Brooks stood still in the center of the floor, her apron wrinkled, hands trembling slightly by her sides. Around her, the restaurant buzzed in stunned silence. Staff exchanged glances like a school of fish sensing a shift in the current. Rick Callahan was gone, just like that. No yelling, no second chances, no cover-ups. And yet, the air still felt heavy, as if years of silence weren't quite ready to lift. Vin looked around the room, locking eyes with each of them. Servers, bussers, cooks, faces he'd once shaken hands with during orientation, now looking at him like he was someone else. Not the face on the corporate newsletter, but a man who'd finally walked into the world they'd been surviving in. We're not finished, Vin said, his voice clear but grounded. What happened tonight didn't start tonight, and if it's been allowed to grow in one Tours, there's a chance it's infected more. Everyone listened, but no one breathed. Vin turned back to Emily. I meant what I said. You helped expose the truth here. But this can't just be about Rick. What you endured can't be swept into a single termination. It has to mean something bigger. Emily nodded slowly, still unsure if she was dreaming. Vin gestured for her to follow and headed toward the private glass conference room near the rear of the restaurant. A room usually reserved for investor tastings and elite clientele. Tonight it would hold something much more powerful. Tyler, Nate, Linda, and 3 other staff members followed without being asked. No one needed convincing. They were ready to speak. Inside the room, Vin sat at the head of the long oak table. Everyone else found their seats like witnesses stepping into a courtroom, but this time, they weren't the ones on trial. Vin placed a leather-bound notebook on the table. It was marked Operations National Feedback Rollout. I'm not here to control this conversation, he said. I'm here to document it. Everything we change from this point on starts with your voices. Linda spoke first. You really mean that? Vin didn't flinch. I do. Emily took a breath. Then we start with accountability. Real accountability. Not just for managers who abuse power, but for systems that let them hide behind performance metrics. Tyler added, Rick made the numbers look good. That's why no one above questioned him. But the way he treated us, we were bleeding behind the smiles. Nate leaned forward. We need mental health support. Not just pizza Fridays or lip service in emails. Real support, anonymous surveys, external check-ins. Someone who doesn't answer to the same guy they're supposed to report. A young pastry chef, Madison, spoke next. What about rehiring? Rick pushed out so many people who never deserved it. If we could open the door to even one of them again, that would send a message. Vin listened to every word, occasionally writing in the notebook. Then he paused. Let me ask you something, he said, eyes on Emily. If I offered you a position, not as a server, not even as a shift lead, but as our first ever internal ethics liaison for the entire tours group, would you take it? The room froze. Emily blinked, stunned. Wait, what? I'm building a new framework, one that lives between HR and operations. Someone who's walked the floor, been on the receiving end of bad leadership. Someone who knows what abuse disguised as professionalism looks like. You want me to help build that? I want you to lead it. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I'm not trained for that. Neither was I when I first stepped into a casting call for a lead role. We learn, we grow. What matters is who we are when power finds us. Emily didn't say yes. Not yet. But something shifted in her face. For the first time in a long time, she saw herself beyond survival. Vin turned to the others. This program won't be for show. Every region, every location, every manager will be reviewed from the bottom up. Staff can flag behavior anonymously, but we won't stop there. If there's a problem that repeats across stores, we'll trace it and we'll act fast. No more waiting for headlines or lawsuits. Tyler grinned. So, this becomes the standard? Vin nodded. We call it the integrity pilot. If it works here, we expand. Tours becomes the model, not just the brand. Nate leaned back in his chair, arms folded, a quiet smile on his face. That's what leadership looks like. The meeting ended just after midnight, but no one was rushing to leave. There were hugs, quiet conversations, people offering rides. For the first time, the back-of-house energy felt like family, not fracture. As Vin walked Emily out to her car, she stopped by the curb. You know, I almost left last week. I even packed my things. But something held me here. Maybe it was fear. Maybe hope. Vin smiled. Sometimes they're the same thing. She opened her car door, then paused. If I take this position, I want it to mean something to every single employee who never got the chance to speak up. It will, Vin promised, because you'll be the voice they never had. As she drove off, Vin stood alone under the glow of the Tours sign. For years, he'd obsessed over lighting, plating, profit margins, but tonight reminded him of something deeper. The soul of a company isn't what it sells, it's who it protects. Inside, Nate began locking up. Tyler helped Linda stack dishes. No one asked them to. They just did. And above the conference room, a small sign was taped to the glass wall by Madison. It read, "Don't mistake silence for satisfaction." The following Monday, Tours didn't open for lunch service. The sign on the door simply read, "Closed for internal restoration." But inside, something far more powerful than remodeling was happening. Ben returned just after 11 a.m., dressed not in a hoodie this time, but in a plain black button-down, sleeves rolled, face calm. The staff had gathered for what was supposed to be a mandatory debrief. But instead of HR forms or lectures, they found a whiteboard, coffee, and someone they trusted standing at the front. Emily Brooks. She didn't need a microphone. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood there and told her story. Not the version they'd whispered about behind the bread racks. Not the edited one she'd told her sister over the phone. The real one. About the nights she stayed because she had no childcare. About the shifts where her voice cracked from pretending everything was okay. About the look Rick gave her when she asked for fewer hours. And about the day she realized silence wasn't protection, it was permission. No one interrupted. When she finished, she looked out at the room and said, "This isn't about revenge. This is about reclaiming our dignity. We deserve to work without fear, to be seen as people, not tools." Someone clapped. Then another. Soon the room filled with the kind of applause that wasn't just support, it was release. The kind you give when someone says what you were too scared to say first. Vin stepped forward and announced the rollout of the integrity program, beginning immediately. Monthly reviews from bottom up, anonymous ethics reports. Direct line to Emily's new role. Every staff member received a printed copy of the restaurant's new conduct and accountability charter, co-written by the people in that room. But it wasn't the papers or policies that changed things. It was what happened next. As the staff dispersed, a busser named Luis approached Emily with watery eyes. "My sister used to work here," he said. "She quit without saying why. But now, I think I know." Emily nodded. "Tell her she's welcome back anytime." In the corner, Linda was teaching two newer servers how to properly balance 3 plates. Tyler was already putting together a new staff schedule with 2 days off guaranteed per week. Outside, a delivery driver waited with a cart of fresh produce. Vin walked out to sign the invoice himself. The man looked at him twice, squinting. "Hey, you're that guy from the movies, right?" Vin smiled. "Sometimes. Today, I'm just someone trying to run a better restaurant." By the time dinner service began that evening, everything felt the same but different. The lights were still warm, the dishes still perfect, but there was a new energy behind it all. One that couldn't be faked or forced. One that came from knowing that the people in the kitchen and on the floor were finally safe. Later that night, after the last table had left, Emily found herself alone near the host's stand. She looked down at her name tag, now engraved with a new title beneath her name, Internal Ethics Liaison. It felt heavy and beautiful. Vin approached, hands in his pockets. "How did it feel?" he asked. She looked up at him. "Like I got my voice back." He nodded. "That's the best kind of power, the kind that lifts everyone else with it." Emily glanced around the quiet dining room and whispered, "For the first time, I'm not afraid to come back tomorrow." Vin smiled. "That's how I know we're doing it right." A week later, a quiet envelope arrived on Vin's desk. No logos, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed and unsigned. It read, "I watched the video. I was one of them. I stayed quiet for too long. But when Emily stood up, I realized maybe it's not too late to find my voice too. Thank you." Vin folded the letter slowly and slid it into the inside pocket of his coat. He didn't know who sent it, but he didn't need to. That letter wasn't written to him. It was written to the culture that allowed silence to bloom, and to the people now brave enough to break it. Across the city, word had spread, not just about Rick's firing, but about what came after. Other tours locations began implementing bottom-up reviews. Staff members who once kept their heads down now filled out anonymous feedback cards without fear. Conversations shifted, so did power. Emily, once seen only as a quiet server with tired eyes, now walked into meetings with district managers and investors, not as a token, not as a victim, but as a leader. Change didn't happen in headlines, it happened in kitchens, in break rooms, in whispered stories that finally found space to be heard. Vin had been in 1,000 boardrooms. He'd pitched to billionaires, debated with directors, fought to protect his vision, but nothing had ever made him feel more proud than seeing a line cook walk up to HR and say, "I have a concern, and I believe you'll listen." That was culture. That was leadership. Too many times, people in power ask for feedback and expect compliments, but feedback, real feedback, is what you hear when people feel safe enough to be honest, and safe enough to know they'll be protected if they are. One afternoon, Vin walked into the original tour's location just as the lunch rush was dying down. The dining room was calm, clean. A couple thanked the hostess on their way out. A child giggled at a coloring sheet. A server laughed in the back while wrapping silverware. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, but everything felt right. He made his way toward the break room, not out of suspicion, but out of habit. When he peeked inside, he didn't find tears this time. He found Emily, sitting at the small table with 3 other staff members, laughing over coffee and sharing weekend plans. No tension in her hands, no fear in her posture. Just ease. Just life. As he turned to leave, she caught his eye and smiled. "Want to join us?" she asked. He paused, smiled back. Next time. And then he walked out, the door closing softly behind him, not like the end of something, but the continuation of something real. Because the truth is, not every villain wears a mask. Sometimes they wear name tags and expensive shoes. And not every hero kicks down doors. Sometimes they show up quietly, listen, and change everything just by refusing to walk away. So if you ever find yourself in a room where someone's voice is shaking, where something feels off and everyone's pretending it's fine, don't look away. Be the one who hears it. Be the one who steps in. Because sometimes all it takes to break the cycle is one person willing to say, enough.